Hello and welcome to another episode of the Syndicate podcast with myself, Shane Story, and my co-host Lawrence King. How are you getting on, Lawrence?
Hi, lad. How are you?
Not too bad. It's been a while since we've done one of these, so yeah, it's been like a month since we made the last one, which is before Ab Series 7, and no real reason that we haven't recorded one. Bit of laziness, bit of scheduling.
I'd say all two of our listeners are just nervously refreshing Spotify and the podcast app waiting
I,
for it to
I was talking to one of them last week, and he was very disappointed that he didn't have the podcast to listen to in his Friday gym session. So,
That's
you know,
50%. That's 50% of our listenership there gone down the Swanee. Like we seriously need to get back on track with this. Like,
yeah, we'll have to, there's so little of them that we can actually know them on first name basis. So,
but that's good. I mean, like in terms of like giving the people what they want, it's fairly straightforward. Like it's just we just ask Ian and Connor what they want to listen to. shout out to the boys.
Yeah, supporting the podcast from day one.
Yeah.
Oh
geez.
But yeah, so like it's been a while since we have recorded one, so there has been a bit that has happened. I suppose we have completed our competitions. So we're going to touch a bit on about that. But Ab Series 7 was deadly event. The Pro-Am, all the flights actually were just really entertaining to watch. Jesse Moore put on a pretty solid performance.
Yeah.
And even in like our division, geez, Ian Benson, he really made a statement that he shouldn't have been competing with us.
It was kind of like a boy amongst men, really, though, wasn't it? Like it was nearly like you were just kind of like watching him go out, and we were nearly watching him lift, and then kind of going out doing your own lifting afterwards.
Yeah. I think that is a good thing though, in the sense about kind of powerlifting competitions as well. Like even if there is somebody who's absolutely like beating the shit out of everybody else, like you don't want them to like miss a lift. You want to see how well they're gonna do.
Oh, 100%. But I think that's powerlifting in general, though. Like
Yeah.
bar you're neck and neck with someone, and it comes down to the last pull, and like you're pulling for first, or they're pulling for first. Like it is one thing I've always noted about powerlifting. Like nobody ever wants to see you fail a lift. It's not like if the other team is taking a free kick or a penalty or kicking a 45 or doing a sideline cut where 50% of the people in the audience want to see you miss. Like nobody wants to see you miss a squat. Nobody wants to see you miss a bench. Like, but particularly when it comes to like in the Pro-Am, like there was three people pulling over, 3 or 4 people potentially at least attempted over 350 anyway. I think Jake, Jesse, Eamon, and Ben, is that 5? All went over, over 350 at least. So I mean, like, who the fuck doesn't want to see someone pull 350 plus? Like, so
yeah, it would be it'd be quite funny actually if there was though like a bit more of a kind of cynical attitude in the crowd and people are like booing people like drunker bar.
I'm telling you, what I'd like to see Jake do is just go down the route of WWE and really like build into the personas. Like I'd like to see a couple of rivalries going on, like the Brock Lesnar, Randy Orton kind of thing from SummerSlam 2007 or something.
Yeah, it was funny in the kind of build up to it when Jay had everybody kind of doing the weigh-ins as if it was a UFC, the tops off and all, and I had Jesse and Jay squaring up to each other. And hopefully neither of them go down the route where they decide to give up powerlifting and decide they want to go into a Eddie Hall and Thor kind of style boxing match. I don't really think that'd be too entertaining.
No, I don't think. Yeah, I don't know though. I think Garrett Small or Jesse could have a career in throwing hands, like full-time shadow boxing, maybe.
Yeah, potentially. Like, God bless them shadows. How anyway, how did you find that your competition had went? Were you happy with your prep? Was there anything that you would change about it?
I suppose there's 2 things there. So the actual comp went resoundingly well, because I was expecting myself to have a mare, really, to be honest with you. squats for me are always just 50-50 chance of them going well or not. Don't know, is it my cueing? This is just the way I squat potentially. But they seem to be very hit and miss. On the day they just felt good. And I got to 257.5 that had folded me a couple of weeks previously. Benched 180 pretty easily, just missed 185. And then I pulled 280, which I kind of thought I would do, but I just wasn't expecting it to move as easily as it did. So that was all good. Total 717.5 and etched up another 10 dots points or something like that. So then as regards the actual prep went fairly well, bar missing one squat. Like I've Dav coaching me, so really like just follow what he programs, try and follow like his cues. I'm probably like useless in terms of like when someone says like push back into the bar, I understand what that sounds like and what I should be doing, but then when it actually comes into coordinating that as a cue, I just can't seem to connect my brain to the rest of me. So a good long off season to try and learn how to squat, because my squat is quite lagging at the moment in comparison to the other two. So try and push that a little bit, and then maybe come. I'm also dieting at the moment, so I'm down to like 119 in the mornings. That's down like 10 kilos from, say, if when I was 4 weeks out, I was about 129. So I'm down like 10 kilos without really doing much, just dropping some carbs out, like 2 carbohydrate portions out of meals. That's pretty much all I've done. Try and be a little bit more physically active, play a bit more golf. That's about it, really. Then maybe compete in. I assume you'll probably do quite similarly to me, maybe, but you'll take a bit of time off and maybe compete again in April-ish, if not before it. I don't know if you have plans to do an IPF comp maybe before then.
Yeah, I was hoping to. Well, if there's going to be like a last chance one, I think there is going to be one in December. Hoping to do that so I could try qualify for nationals, IPF nationals. But yeah, no, I was thinking you were looking a bit leaner. It's always good. Always good to see you get the jawline coming in. You know, as well, yeah, kind of taking those small wins as you mentioned there, like, you know, without having to kind of change anything too drastically. I think that is definitely something that, like, I know people that when they do start off in a fat loss kind of phase, like they don't take those kind of small wins and they just want to go hard straight away.
Oh, gee, but like to be honest, like that's me. Is just I'm such a person of extremes. Like, and I've done fat loss phases before where I've lost like, and then I don't know, does it even become fat loss? Because I mean, you just like there maybe a year ago, nearly after the last abs comp I did or it was August last year anyway. I think I lost 12 kilos in 2 months. But I just pulled the plug on it because it just wasn't the way I was eating, the way I was training just wasn't sustainable. And I was getting weaker, like I wasn't recovering from my training sessions because I just wasn't eating enough. So kind of the approach I'm taking at the moment is just give myself, and like I'm not putting an end date on when I stop dieting. I'm just putting an end date on when I'm happy with a level of leanness. Because like it's fine walking around at like nearly 130 kilos, but it's just not good for general health slash dots slash longevity. So yeah, that's the plan. Just get a little bit leaner. But like you said, like it's just small little wins that just, you know, don't massively require too much effort. Like I mean, if you're 130 kilos and as sedentary as I was, it's not hard to lose 10 kilos. Like, and then I shouldn't have to crucify myself to get the next 10 off either, I'd imagine. Hopefully not.
I suppose like one kind of thing you can always fall back on is like, you've definitely been there before. Like, if you've stepped on the bodybuilding stage, you definitely have that kind of grit in you to diet down to pretty low levels of body fat. So kind of
Yeah.
getting down to like the next 10 kilos is probably going to be relatively like, manageable for you. Like obviously will require a little bit of effort. Just one thing you kind of touched on there. So you mentioned that the last time you went through the diet phase, like last year, you would have implemented some unsustainable practices. So what would that have looked like?
Oh Jesus! Like anything, like if you asked me what not to tell someone what not to do when they're dieting, like I did it all. Um, so my view, like it was probably because number one of my idea that okay, I need to get this weight off as quick as possible was my first kind of thought going into it, because I was walking around at maybe like 127, 128 most mornings, and I felt terrible. So I did the competition weight in at like 124, got finished off that comp, and I was like, I need to lose this fucking ASAP. Like, so that was that, like that motivation in of itself. Just I think like lose, doesn't matter what I lose, just need to lose weight as quick as possible. Probably wrong from the outset. Secondly to that, I suppose in terms of my actual setup, my average day looked like I would have a very strong coffee in the morning. That could have been, say, 3 shots of espresso, in a, like, basically a treble espresso in a little cup, and I drink that. I would be very, very productive for about 3 hours after that, bang through a load of work. And then lunchtime would come. I would maybe have a yogurt. I don't know, do you know them, the little scare things for
Yeah.
Lidl? I'd have one of those at lunch. I wouldn't eat then again until after I trained. So I would usually train around lunchtime, say 2 or 3 o'clock. So I'd only have that scare in me maybe when I train, and I'd have another coffee maybe before I trained. So then I'd train. I would probably have some, maybe between 200 and 250 grams raw weight of meat, with some kind of carb, usually rice or potatoes, probably no more than 100 grams of carbs. And I'd eat that meal twice more before going to bed. Um, and then on non-training days, I could go until maybe like 4 or 5 o'clock without eating, and I would just have those 3 meals at maybe like, say, 5, 7, and like 10:30 or something like that, and that was it for like 2 months. Um, I was just terrible. Like I don't know why I put myself through that misery of just eating so little. And then if you're a powerlifter and you're or a bodybuilder or anybody that's in any way concerned about performance, like if you're not at least setting up your diet in a way that's funneling carbs into your training session, um, you're setting yourself up to have a bad time, and you're just going to get frustrated because you're going to, I don't know, anecdotally anyway, at least you look fairly terrible in your first few weeks of dieting because you're usually quite flat until you can see a certain level of leanness. And then in on top of that, my performance was fairly badly affected. So I looked I looked worse, and I started performing worse. Um, then I suppose other mad shit I was doing then, like I would um I was working in a gym, and like I would do like maybe 2 or 3 spin classes a week in on top of whatever extra walking and extra steps I was trying to do. So I just threw in a shitload more work in on top of dieting as well. So yeah, just all around bad setup. So kind of what I've changed to now is just basically eating the same as I was eating before the comp. My food choices are an awful lot better. Like my food quality is better at the moment. I think that just comes through virtue of being on slightly more restricted calories. I'm not massively tracking anything. I'm just eating the same thing every day. I cook a kilo of 5% mince, or sorry, 800 grams of 5% mince at night, and I throw like 500 grams of mixed veg, the frozen mixed veg,
Yeah.
in on top of that. When it's cooking, divide that up into 3 or 4 meals depending on how hungry I am. And then I'll cook maybe like 1.5 kilos of baby potatoes, or 2 kilos from like it's as basic and as vague as that. If I feel really hungry the day before, I'm like, okay, we're a little bit more hungry, so I'll just have a little bit more potatoes or something. And then I'll still have my same breakfast, which is that skyr in the morning. That's pretty much it. That's what I'm eating every day.
It sounds at least a bit more kind of nutrient dense compared to chicken and rice. Like, I mean, there's nothing wrong with chicken and rice, but like, now when that's like the majority of your meals, like, comparing like lean beef mince and potatoes and veg, that, yes, no comparison really.
Oh, no. But I just, like, to be fair, I suppose when I was eating like that, I was working in the gym at the same time. So most days I could be in the office from 9 to 3 or 9 to 4, teaching, and on top of that, and then I could be in the gym from 5 to 10. So I was doing maybe like a 13 or 14-hour day. So a lot of my eating was convenience. Like the way I am at the moment with work and with the research end of things being relatively quiet. I mean, I'm in such a good position in that sense. It's very easy to eat well if you've access to a kitchen and
Yeah.
no real other life stressors in on top of it. Like, but yeah, all's going well. So hopefully this jawline gets fucking sharper and sharper between here and Christmas.
Yeah, mine will start to expand and yours will get sharper.
Good.
Yeah.
What about you now? What's your plans? You're back, I won't say gaining weight, but you're in kind of a maintenance phase again, yeah?
Yeah. So going through a little bit of a more kind of busy kind of social period post competition. So not gonna hide that. I think it's an important kind of
That can turn into a weight loss period real quickly.
yeah, but it's an important time because I suppose like before competition, like I suppose it's quite important that you kind of keep the goal and you're like, you're trying to keep away from maybe things that are going to take you off track. So like if I'm going out with my friends, it's most likely going to involve some alcohol, some late nights, things that are not really going to contribute to me doing being bigger and stronger. So going through a bit more of a kind of social phase now post competition, because I know when I want to compete again in December, I'm going to have another kind of more kind of restrictive kind of phase, I suppose. So yeah, trying to maintain my weight, I suppose, for the time being, and then coming up to those kind of social occasions, just trying to manage my nutrition. If I know that, like, say for example, I'm going to a wedding at the end of the week, so this week my calories are set at 4,100, but I'm just shaving off like 10-15% of those per day, and just so I have a bit more of a calorie buffer for that weekend, so I can enjoy myself at the wedding, have a few pints, eat whatever food I want, and not be worried that I'm gonna come back 94 kilos after after the wedding. So that's a kind of typical strategy as well that I kind of recommend clients do as well if they have kind of social occasions coming up. But yeah, so I suppose my kind of plan then after that is to compete in an IPF competition. So before for the abs competition, it was or the kind of placings are done on dots points. So being a low body weight, relative to your total was kind of important if you wanted to place well or have a good kind of score. So it's a bit different with the IPF. It's just done in total. So it's just done in weight class and total. So if I'm competing in the 93 class, even if I'm competing against somebody who's 88 and they take total less than me, even if they're DOTS points or Wilks points or IPF points or whatever the fuck they use anymore, yeah, I will still do better because my total is better. So it suits you better if you're doing a weight class competition, or sorry, more kind of weight class specific competition like an IPF competition, to be on the cusp of that weight class, because you're going to be able to train at a heavier weight. Typically, if you're a bit heavier, you can lift a bit of heavier loads, and have a bit more muscle in training. So yeah, I'm going to plan to get up to around kind of 93, 94 mark and kind of hover around there for competition. Probably won't be doing anything like a weight cut coming into the competition. Personally, I just don't really think it's worth it for me. It's a 2-hour weigh-in for IPF competitions.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, so
Oh, bollocks, fuck that.
yeah,
So,
so compared to
why is that?
yeah, so compared to the competition that we just did, it was a 24-hour weigh-in. So you can essentially, like, you can carbohydrate deplete, you can water deplete, you can sodium deplete, you can do fucking loads of mad stuff, and you still have that kind of 24-hour time window to refuel glycogen, like hydrate yourself again. However, if you are doing that with 2-hour weigh-in, it's really just not enough time to get yourself in kind of peak condition. Like what you can only or you can only store utilize like 60 grams of carbohydrates per hour. Is that it?
The guts of that, yeah.
Yeah. So like, if you're trying to get in 120 grams in 2 hours and you've maybe depleted most of your glycogen stores throughout the week, yeah, it's probably not going to go too well.
No.
So yeah, that's my kind of plan. Hopefully qualify for nationals. Didn't do as well as I kind of wanted to do at the abs competition, but I suppose that's probably a product of kind of setting my expectations too high. I probably lost a bit too much weight, if I'm being completely honest. So I went from 98 to, sorry,
Were you 87?
I was 88 I was 88 at the weigh-ins, but that was like way a bit of water cut. But like before then, I was like, the week before I started water cut, I was like 90. So like, and I had gotten down to 89, put a little bit back on in the kind of a post diet period, finished dieting 6 weeks out from the competition. So I'll be ready for the peak. However, just fatigue just started to kind of beat me up a bit. Couldn't really bench for the last 3-4 weeks before competition. Elbow was fried. Happened to me last year, same competition. So thankfully I have Dav looking after me now for the next competition that I'm going to be doing. So he'll hopefully stop me being a retard and help me if that elbow issue pops up again. But yeah, so I don't know if there was something to change, or if I want to change for the last competition. Probably just would have been like getting to that kind of, I would have competed a little bit heavier. Like, I would have tried to stop dieting at around the 92 mark. Thanks, like 6 kilos, 6 or 7 kilos is plenty to have lost, especially in such a short time span. But yeah, it's interesting how quickly, like, you how that kind of dip in strength can kind of manifest itself, because I didn't really feel that I was losing much strength throughout that diet at all, but it was really only as I came up to the peak that I kind of noticed that, like, fuck, my bench my bench is really taking a hit here. As well.
I, for
Go on.
you kind of had a twofold issue as well, though, in the sense that you'd been training on non-comp
Yes,
equipment.
yeah, that's the next
That
thing I was
that
going to say.
would be the main one would have said, because what I do find is that if you're training on the same equipment all the time, um, like, I suppose you were training by yourself in Spain, um, you maybe mightn't have been holding your lifts. Like, I like looking at your lifts on Instagram, your lifts are fine, but I suppose you just don't lift to the same standard
Yeah.
when you're by yourself as when you're in abs. So then you came back, you had the clusterfuck of being thrown back into maybe 4 weeks out, having to use comp equipment all over again, and re-sensitized to that.
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely know. Like, I noticed that the most on, well, obviously using the deadlift bar was a bit of a bollocks, but also like then when I came home and ended up getting COVID, that was also a bit of a fucking bit of a nightmare. But like I mean, I don't think that detracted from my training too much. Like it is fine. I was kind of couldn't train in competition equipment again for another week. Training in my back garden. Felt a bit ill for a few days, but nothing major. I mean, I pushed training back one day, but yeah, it wasn't really too much of an issue that. So yeah, I suppose next competition, have lower expectations, be a little bit heavier, and be a bit stricter with myself in training.
Yeah,
Pretty much it.
yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. So your last chance, is that the 4th and 5th of December, 4th or 5th of December? I think
Hasn't been announced yet.
I think that's usually around the
Yeah.
time it is.
See,
So
the thing is, like with the total I put up in the last competition, I mean, I probably would qualify for nationals with that,
yeah,
considering I did it in sleeves as well. Because as well, because there hasn't been as many competitions on as well. I think David May said abs competitions can count towards that, or
oh,
towards they were towards a national team selection anyway. I know that for a fact.
that'd be all right.
But at the same time, I want to do an IPF one
I
and
know.
just
Yeah,
do that. You know, I feel a bit like a cop out doing an abs competition qualifying for nationals. You know, but the 93 class or even 93 105 and the IPF, all fucking weight class now are extremely competitive. So
yeah,
it'd be a good opportunity. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much my kind of competition roundup anyway.
yeah. No, I think I felt very disheartened for you on the day. It was
Ah,
after the last pull, you just looked so sad.
ah,
Because everyone else was so elated, like I got my last pull. Connor did his brain took a screenshot in his last one, but he still managed to pull through. And
yeah.
everyone's just high off high off that. You missed your last. I felt terrible for you.
Look, it is what it is. Like, I mean, if I decided that I was going to just PE my total, if I wanted to just go 6-6, if I wanted to get 667, I would have just pulled
277 and a half.
277.5. Yeah, that'd be it. Or I could have even pulled 275. Sure.
275, I think.
Yeah,
Was
no, just to match my last comp PB. But like the main goal coming into the competition was to get promotion to Pro Am. So I had to pull that. Like after missing my third bench, which I should have fucking made. Like I
yeah,
was actually watching the video of it and I'm paused at the like about an inch from lockout for like 10 seconds, just like
just
trying to push. I was like, don't let go, Jack.
yeah. Oh,
But I had to do it. So I mean, I'd rather take that hit and fall short and not PB my total than like, you know,
fair enough.
just fall short of it. That'd be kind of shit. Like I'd be still frustrated. Like,
Yeah, oh, sure, of course.
you know.
Well,
Next time,
if you were doing another abs meet, would you do it in wraps?
I want to wait until I get to Pro Am. I'm just kind of a bit stubborn with it, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, I want to prove to myself. It's not to anybody else that I'm good enough to get into the division with sleeves. You know, because it's not a huge ask anyway.
440 no in sleeves.
Like if I'm taking the last competition into kind of account, like
Yeah.
it wasn't hugely off it, but it's just one of those things. I'd like to wait until I get into Pro Am and then try wraps again and then kind of push from there, because I think like the 440 in sleeves is pretty achievable. But then like, you know, if you're competing Pro Am at that level, I mean, if you're not using sleeves, or sorry, if you're not using wraps, you're kind of
You're just there.
yeah, you're gonna become last.
Yeah. Um yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. Like you're on the cusp of it. But I suppose if you do 440 at the IPF meet in December,
Yeah.
will that change your mind?
Oh well, like if I do 40-40 there, then I'll be put into the Pro Am anyway.
That's what I'm saying though. Will you do wraps then?
Oh yeah.
What's your what would you kind of envision as your plan for next year then as regards comps? So you said nationals, IPF nationals, that's usually March, April, I think, is it?
March, April. So past that, I haven't really thought too much about it because I don't know. Like, I certainly wouldn't be qualifying for the Irish team. And I probably wouldn't. It'd just be nice to compete in nationals. You know, I sometimes you have to kind of be a bit realistic with yourself and kind of be like,
oh, who are you telling?
yeah, like, well, especially after the last competition, fuck's sake. But like, you know, it has to be realistic. Like realistically, I'm not going to place. I wouldn't place top 5 at national level. Like the standard is just too high. You know, so I'll be happy to just kind of PB my total there. Like if I hit 700 there, that'd be class. And then following that, I mean, like, God, 800 is a long way. Potentially might look at doing like a bodybuilding competition in September, October, just as another kind of side goal.
Do NGSI or UK DFBA or whatever the fuck it is?
I'd probably do both if I could.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
If you're gonna diet down to like bleeding Skeletor mode, I think it's worth to do a few shows as opposed to just doing one. Yeah. You know, like obviously it would extend the diet, extend the prep, but like yeah, you're not going to be getting into that condition every single year.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. It's probably like for, I suppose, as well, to get the best result, unless you're an extremely seasoned competitor in bodybuilding, you kind of do need to run a couple of trials to get the look right on the day.
Yeah, I suppose like one thing though, I suppose I have kind of wrestled with. I'm sure other people could relate to this as well. It's like do you know the way after a competition you feel like elated, and especially when you're training somewhere like abs, there's such a sense of community, that even like the thought of kind of leaving something like that is kind of difficult. I've heard
completely, yeah.
I've heard people say like, you know, it's easy to leave a sport, but it's hard to leave a community, and that's like so true. Like I suppose obviously if I do transition over to bodybuilding, or when I do, I wouldn't be training in the gym in abs, because I mean it's don't even have a lat pull down anymore. So both of them are broke.
You're fucking joking me.
Yeah, pull ups only bad.
Is he getting it fixed?
I don't know.
What fucking retard broke that now? Oh, that's so.
It was actually a combination of myself and Brick.
Yeah, of course it was. Two fucking mongrels hanging off it. Fuck sake, like.
Right. Well, it wasn't a purposeful thing. Okay. The cables are old. But anyway, so what were we saying there? Yeah. So like I would have to leave the gym and kind of go to more kind of, I suppose, bodybuilding friendly gym.
You would definitely. But I mean, the reality is with bodybuilding as well. Like I mean, the training is completely shifted. That you're training for a look.
Yeah.
Like you're not like your performance is there, but you're really just you're trying to get in as much volume into sessions, and you're trying to iron out your weaknesses as much as you can. So I mean, you having more and more machines available to you, it just makes sense. I totally agree with you.
At the same time though, like, you know, just because you kind of switch over from one to the other doesn't necessarily mean you need to like stop doing the kind of movements you like. Like I know there's plenty of guys who compete in like the USAPL the USAPL and the WNBF over in the States. Like ever hear Brian Miner? He's pretty much top tier kind of USAPL 93, but he's also like competes as a heavyweight in natural bodybuilding. Yes, he can do bodybuilding naturally. You never heard that the two words in the same sentence before. But he's like absolutely jacked. Like if you've seen him when he's lean, like you probably would think he's on the juice.
There's a guy, Dr. Ben Pollock. I think he does both as well. He'd be a fairly decent lifter.
And I suppose like your man Stan Efferding as well. Like he's a the
Like
world's strongest bodybuilder.
the two definitely. I think your man Ben Pollock actually took that off him.
Did he?
Yeah, I think he's a higher total than I know or something. But yeah, it's just like the two definitely complement each other. But it's if you're, I suppose the way I always likened it to people was if you are elite in bodybuilding or powerlifting, you're going to have an affinity towards the other one because you probably have a shit ton of muscle mass and you're probably really, really strong, which will probably allow you to build more muscle than most. Like if you look at most bodybuilders, like let's say pro bodybuilders, be they natural or geared, they're insanely strong.
Yeah.
Like just off the rails strong. I remember watching what's your man's name? The natural Canadian guy. Can't think of his name, but he used to like deadlift like 220. Like I remember being 17 watching this cunt deadlift, and he used to do 220 for sets of 15 conventional.
No, yeah.
I was
this is already Doug Miller, was it?
Oh yeah. Sorry, yeah.
Doug Miller, he's a
freak, like. But I mean, but that's my point. Is like freaks are freaks. So I mean, when we do say that, like, oh yeah, there's a guy, he's a 93 kilo. You know, when you were saying that, like I mean, people do take it with a pinch of salt. These are the 1% of the 1% that can be elite at both. Generally, if you want to be good at, like, let's say, like quite good at powerlifting, you probably will have to specialize in one. Whereas you will have some people that can flip flop between both and be elite. That's the annoying thing. We all had that friend in school that could just turn their hand to anything and could make the county team in football. They were on every representative team they could be on for all the sports.
Yeah, and then they take up drinking.
Yes. And we found powerlifting.
Yeah, exactly. So who's laughing now?
So yeah, that's us.
Yeah, I think that kind of wraps up. We're gonna record a terribly serious podcast this evening. You know, just kind of get us back into the groove. You know, so next week we'll be back with a bit of an interesting topic, that you can maybe learn something from that. But yeah, until then, if you enjoy this podcast, which is a bit more of a ramble, just let us know. Ian and Connor.
We might as well just start naming the boys now, really. Like, and anyone else that just wants us to start name dropping them, just get on to us.
Yeah, exactly.
If you have a third listener, please make yourself known to us. Third listener.
Yeah. So if you enjoy the podcast, share on your social media, leave us a rating on iTunes or one of those apps. And so next episode, not in 4 weeks' time. Next week, hopefully.
we'll aim to get back weekly because I missed you.
Yeah. Grand, right. Talk to you later. Have a great week. And until the next one.